Hello, I'm Nick Clooney. I want to welcome you to Augusta, Kentucky, one of my favorite places on the planet. A town rich in history, a place that endured a devastating day in 1862 when the Civil War came to town. Let's take a look at the Civil War and Augusta, Kentucky.
The Battle of Augusta is an important battle.
The Battle of Augusta is a small battle, but that's what the Civil War is all about, is small battles.
It pitted Kentuckians against Kentuckians.
By understanding the personal level, the emotional level of battles, of the fighting that went on, we get a feel for what the Civil War was really all about.
Back in 1862, Augusta was a thriving community just upriver from one of the most important cities in the country, Cincinnati, Ohio. As Confederate forces moved north through Kentucky, the people here and in Cincinnati were concerned, and the worry went all the way to Washington.
Cincinnati was truly the Queen City. It was the 5th in manufacturing in the nation, 6th in population, and factories there were turning out cannon and uniforms and tremendous mountain of supplies. And so to have the Queen City shelled by the enemy would have been extremely embarrassing to Lincoln.
A very important, vibrant part of the world. Ulysses Grant's horse was named Cincinnati, and his family lived in Covington during the war. It was very important that it remain intact, and therefore it was protected by forts all over the northern Kentucky area, and we have cities still named for all those forts, Fort Mitchell. It's all of that kind of thing came right from the Civil War.
The Confederate invasion was their worst nightmare. The concern on everybody's part that this was going to spread across the Ohio River, Cincinnati was going to be shelled, and there was just chaos.
Joshua Taylor Bradford, a prominent surgeon in Augusta, was given orders to form a home guard, a militia for Bracken County. Bradford had served under General Bull Nelson at Shiloh, and some of Bradford's home guard were pretty confident they could defend Augusta. They just returned from a battle in Cynthiana.
They go back to Augusta, where Anna Diltz records in her diary, "Great deal of excitement in Augusta tonight. The Home Guard has come back and they are excited about engaging the enemy in another fight. John Hunt Morgan is coming to Augusta."
In fact, it would be Morgan's brother-in-law, Basil Duke, leading 450 Confederates into Augusta for what he thought would be an easy walk to the Ohio River and on toward Cincinnati.
Now, throughout all this, the concern about what was going to happen about these Confederate troops coming across the Ohio River had spawned a request to bring in a brown water navy. And what they had done was convert a group of boats into what they call tin-clads. They were armed with one cannon each, and they were very lightly protected. Most of the people involved were not professional soldiers. They had no knowledge of real combat or anything else. They were there just to act as a deterrent. And with a cannon, they could be a serious deterrent. They could not withstand an actual assault, and that was not the intent.
Basil Duke aimed his own small howitzers, called bullpups, at the gunboats and ordered a company of his men to head toward the river and fire on the boats. Back in town, Bradford's men had positioned themselves in the upper floors of brick houses along what is now Main Street after Bradford delivered an inspiring call to battle.
He gives them a speech in which he says, "Are you willing to stand by me and fight this fight with the gunboats in your defense?" And everybody agrees that yes, they will. Hurrah for Kentucky, hooray for Union, let's go. What happens next is Duke comes forward and he appears on the hill overlooking Augusta. He does not ask for a surrender, nor does Bradford say, let's talk about this. Both of them apparently had made up their mind that this battle was going to take place.
One of the gunboats fires on the hill and kills 3 of Duke's men.
Duke's howitzers open fire, and They fire a total of 9 rounds over the next few minutes. At that same time, his advance guard has come into town. It is heading out towards the sandbar to fire on the boats and also discourage them and try and make them run off under the pressure of the fire.
And it works. The captains of the gunboats flee, abandoning the home guard.
This is Bradford's worst nightmare.
Now Duke thinks the fight is over, but when his men march through the streets, the home guards who've been hiding upstairs in the buildings open fire on the rebels below.
They are caught in an ambush of major proportions, and the firing is intense. Many rebels are struck and wounded or killed, and the next thing they see are flags waving out of some of the windows. And Duke looks at this and says, well, I guess this means a general surrender. Well, those people who were doing that were not interested in surrender. And what Duke learned was only the ones who were shaking these white surrender flags really intended to give up. The others had no intention of giving up. This duplicity, this fraud, angers Duke and his men beyond measure. And he authorizes them to take the howitzers and fire into the windows of the buildings where this is occurring and do whatever they think is necessary. The fighting becomes ferocious, treacherous, and vicious on both sides. The result is terrible. Duke's men are so angry that they do not allow the wounded to come out of those buildings. They instead set the buildings on fire and burn these people alive, some of them.
It's phenomenal that it was as fierce of a fight it was, given the numbers. 125 Union Home Guards versus 450 regular Confederate cavalrymen invading their town. And to put up that much of a defense, usually Home Guards ran without a fight, without firing a shot. Basil Duke won the battle in that Bradford surrendered, but Basil Duke lost the battle, the campaign, as far as the rest of the raid was concerned, because he took so many casualties and used up all of his artillery ammunition. He had to withdraw to Falmouth. So it was a victory for Duke, but a victory for Bradford and the Home Guards in that they saved Cincinnati from attack.
Not long after the battle, the Army court-martialed those 2 gunboat captains who fled when fighting began. One was acquitted, and while the other one was convicted, he pretty much walked after an appeal. Now, it wasn't until recent years that historians discovered those court records, and they've given us new insight into the battle. They've also inspired a community to preserve and honor that part of its past.
And so we remember a turbulent time that shaped not only Augusta, but our entire nation. I'm Nick Clooney. Thanks for visiting.